Scroll down and make sure you got another monitor.
I am.
Yeah, you got it. So that's fine. So now go and push that to your window. Well, before you push it, you should go on to make sure that
She's not transferred anymore.
It doesn't matter. You let it go.
So I'm gonna do your vote.
no, but you're personally responsible.
Yeah, you're literally, you should
No,
do it.
straight
It's
to
part
you.
of your work. You should protect that work. So I'm going to wait. Oh, your boss already said
I totally
No, something didn't go right at work, so I had to sit there and get it done. Promised the deliverables to the client, and it wasn't happening, so I just had to stay until it happened.
That's always fun.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. And they're done that. Here, why don't you close this video window? There'll keep it
All right. Good evening, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover today, so not a minute to waste. All right. So, oh, you guys had your Red Bulls and coffees and everything. All right. Not that it's going to be lengthy. It's going to be a little bit difficult also, some of the concepts. So let's go ahead and get started on this. So what are we going to be doing today? We'll start with the warm-up activity from the last class, and I'll share you the format. The main topic of today is going to be ORM. We'll see what ORM is. We'll see some issues with ORM, how to solve them. Then we'll look at MVC. We'll see what that means. Then Will or Nick will share the homework towards the end of the class, and then we also have a checkpoint. So if this wasn't enough, we have two more extra things on top of that. The last point I'll mention when we get there. Okay. So we'll be looking at SQL, connecting it through Node.js. Is still kind of a bit complicated. So the warm-up activity this time, I'm not going to do it. You guys are going to do it, but do it with your neighbor. Everybody has to pair up on this activity. And I want, the best case, I want everybody to complete this. I want to make sure everybody gets the hang of it. And this is very similar to what we did, what I did last time at the end of the class. So with your partners, I want you to start on this activity. We'll go through the README. It will tell you what you need to do. But before you begin, I want you to look at the folder structure. A lot of the code is already there. Okay? So I want you guys to go over it. Suppose that you've been given this code at your workplace. Somebody has already done it. You guys are coming in new and you want to make those changes. Consider that. So look at the directory structure. Discuss it with your neighbor how the code has been distributed. And then go ahead and code whatever the README is saying. At a high level, what I saw is you just have to worry about the server.js. Okay. All of these, you have to complete these routes. All right. Work with do pair programming on this. I want to make sure everybody gets it. The endpoint is you will have to complete these routes, get the data from MySQL. And you already have these queries written. Okay, so you don't have to worry about writing the queries. You have to run them, obviously, but don't have to worry about it. So you already should have these. Go ahead and run this. This will create your database. So the first thing I would do is that, and then go through and see what you need to do. Okay? I'll set a timer, but I'll be going around. We want to make sure that everybody is able to complete this one. Okay? And again, find a partner. Almost every exercise today, we'll do it in as a pair program. Okay, and it's very important because we are coming to the towards the end of the, I don't know, like the second quarter, week more, and then this project week. So I want to make sure before going into project week, everybody understands this concept clearly. Okay. All right. So start with the Quotes app. Please do let me know if you guys run into any issues. Please feel free to look at the previous exercises also that we did on Tuesday if you want to understand. As I said, take few minutes just to look at the folder structure. This is very, the division, and they have modularized it very well. So it would be something, to keep in mind how this has been done. I would definitely follow this when you guys are doing your assignments or, just doing those activities. It's the views, the public folder, go through the server.js, how these have been calling in the beginning, and see what you need to update.
So, yes. Yeah, just yeah, actually, you guys part why are
Yeah, he asked me to go over 3 minutes. I think you're staying there. Oh, I can come down. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll come in. You got one. It's all good.
Yes.
Probably be in this most of the time.
No. I was in here last night.
Space here.
Yeah, it's over here.
Reading the instructions.
Walk down on the rare side.
Oh, yeah.
Chair hookup. Myself hooked up here. Yeah, yeah. Some of this stuff. I did not like it.
So I don't
But this is supposed to be.
What's deviation? Oh yeah. The only thing I had done, I thought I inserted from my but I want to make sure because I did a test on it, but I didn't do it with the tables. The rows in the database and then creatable fields. There you go.
That's what the database created?
I think I did use my this thing doesn't like it unless you do is just write it on.
Well, mine's really weird.
I need it. Reinstall it. You're talking to the choir. I had to reinstall it. It pissed me off like
I still find out there.
And then run your server.js and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things. Is it close? Yeah. That's weird. Hold on, let me go back. Yeah, let me go back and make sure. So, I'm at number 12. That would explain. And I think it's number 11. It's in my database, but I didn't. Yeah. Good news is, I'm less inept than I used to be. Okay, there we go. Now I've been trying to do it in here, but it's kind of hit and miss. But you know what? I'll see. All you have to do is query, and it did it. So then create answer. And okay, no database selected. Well, I did. Oh, I didn't use this. Yeah. Yeah, that was the problem. I did the wrong one. I was on number 12, not number 11. Yeah, I was on the wrong activity.
Oh, okay. I did it at 12.
Yeah. Okay, so that's for W. So this should. Okay. All the way up there. Just the use.
Yeah, so the pages code is already there. You don't even have to worry about it. The only thing, if you look at it, the pages, everything is already there. I was just saying, just look at it how it is. That's what the. But if I look at it, everything, you shouldn't have to mess with any of these things. Yeah, the code is, the only thing is server.js. You have to write these queries over here. That's it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. But I was just saying, take a look how it is arranged. So it's kind of very well arranged. Everything is separated down.
So you have to go ahead and use.
Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. It'll probably go to the same error. Let's try. Yeah, no doubt. So right there. You're gonna do it that way? Oh. Wait a minute. What do I need to pay?
We're topping when we send it back to the display.
Gotcha. Now I should be able to have it. No, but that's. So we go here. There we go. Okay, money. We're gonna check this. There we go. All right. So that runs. So now we're gonna go. Deal with anything about CSS. Just as JavaScript. So C. Copy paste. The delete requests and all those. I'm not going to tell you I've never because I haven't.
So we have to.
Yeah, so basically we try to insert into. I'm going to open one more window because there was code and other stuff that we could use. So I'm just saying that and then open the code of the files previous. So I can go back here and go and see. So I'm going to sketch the first 10
I can't see what he's doing.
This was a thing using the express menu to add parts. You had to require express, had to express. Yeah, there. See, you got that, you got this required. Okay, so this is where it gets different because it's not fair. So let's do it. So no, that's the same. That's the same. This VHS file, express that's there. See. Use the signature bar. Yes. Oh. Yeah, we don't have it. Yeah, we don't want to. I gotta change my sequence based on it has to 127.0.0. I don't know why. And I don't want to go. I think I can fix it, but I don't want to delete it. I'm thinking of copying from the database and deleting it and redoing it. So I have to keep what's all there. Kind of a pain. So here's my fantasy password. Well, I did it because I took a problem. So let's see. My quote should be here.
Well, look at your
Put out fires.
It's my one skill. Like
There it is.
So, we have our here, but we don't have anything in the so we need like a res JSON something.
So this all looks appropriate.
You're connected.
Oh.
There's that. Now we can sort of.
yes. Now you reach the 30 line. The gun has yet to be shot.
Okay, this is where we gotta change the index to the handlebars to that's left matter of also I look over here and see how I see where that so go to first on and then press the left hand here from that so it really slide that down which in our case so we can come
All right, how many groups have been successfully completed the database part? Anybody who has not done the database? You guys did the database? Okay. All right, what about the first route here? How many have completed the first route? First route.
That's where we're now. We're not getting into this.
It should be new text. I don't think you guys have to modify any of this.
Yeah, would it be
there.
index, handlebars.
Example of it is just my art that counts up. I gotta do that.
That's the one. So what I'm doing with that is
That's more art.
So just was all of the quotes. Right. Yeah, so rather than like hitting some regular APIs, all of them, it's just going to go to the field that has that ID. So this is what
we don't have the middleware.
we're currently doing.
We have the variable for handlebars required.
Where is
We do have middleware. Yeah. So then it would be res.render. So this one.
you have something that might give that?
It would be. It would be the sub ID of whatever array.
It might be slash.
Okay, so slash, then do slash. And so, dot. Okay, create just so here we go. So just do res.render index with data.
I just want to try it.
Do res.render index.
Oh, is it?
No, the ID.
You know what index is okay. So if I take this up here, then I'm have to compare lines to figure out which one has. So I'm right at
Let's fix it.
that is not. So.
Yeah, it is. First.
And I think once that page, instead of doing fall, that star fall, it just wants data from ID. So so sure. Oh, it is.
Give it to us. Start at the top.
All right, guys, 2 more minutes.
Yeah, like this. And then if no error, then you can do the rest out right here.
And then you can
So what about your results?
Hey. Alright, now let's do the next one. Yeah. Yeah. This is the other one.
All right.
You're able to retroactively understand why.
Okay. All right. So there were 5 routes. Any team that was able to do all 5?
We got one.
Oh, yeah.
Not what?
Actions. Like clicking the button.
Clicking the button. Okay.
That's the part that
Okay.
was already in there.
Okay. Well, this exercise was actually for 10 minutes and I gave you almost half an hour. And if you were able to do all 5 in even half an hour, that would have been a miracle. You know, yeah. These exercises are kind of intentionally supposed to go overtime. But 5 is still difficult. 4, 3 routes, 2, 1, 3. Okay, we have 3. There's 2 or 3. 1, 3, 1, 2. Yeah, 1, 2, and 3. Those are kind of more expected, right? So let's go ahead really quickly. I will show you we'll walk through this really quickly and then we'll go on to the next one. So the first one was to get everything from the database, all right? It's a select query, select star from your table, should get you everything, all right? The second one was with the ID, right? You pass in the ID and it shows you, and it only searches for a single one. So this is only going to return you one result set, all right? So this is where the where condition comes in, okay? The third one was post, which means you are inserting data, all right? So this is the insert query, okay? The third is delete. So this is the delete query. Delete from the table where you pass in the ID, all right? So remember I said get is you pass in the get without anything is everything. Get with an ID, you pass in the URL, Okay, post, everything goes in the body, nothing in the URL. Delete, same as get, everything in the URL, which is the ID. Okay, and put is both a combination of ID and the body, URL and the body. Okay, so in put you put in the ID in your URL, and if there's anything else over here, looks like it's code, you pass it in the body. Okay. Any questions or any one of these CURD operations or calling it? Okay. So this is very similar to what we did in the previous exercise. All right. So all right. What is going on over here is we are still writing a lot of code. Okay. You see, we are repeating the connection. We are repeating the SQL queries every single activity we do, right? And I've seen some of the people using module.exports in their assignments, kind of like that. And then I've at least couple I know have kind of created a wrapper. You guys did it, kind of created a wrapper, and you just copy paste the same code, like same file, and just keep calling that wrapper. Kind of does a lot of work for you. Okay, what do I mean by this? I'm wrapping. A lot of people are like wrapping this in like functions which are reusable. Just like, you know, keep calling those functions instead of like keep writing this code again and again. Okay. For those of you who are still not sure what I'm saying, I'll show you. What I mean is, so you see this code kind of repeating, and almost in every activity I'm creating this connection. The queries are same, the select queries. So what I want to do is these are repeating, right? And what do? We create functions for that. All right, so I want to create like functions for those that I can keep calling, not even this activity, in any other activity. Okay. And with the concept of module.export, I want to create them in like separate files. My server.js right now is like too crowded. If I expand these, it's like almost like 120 lines, right? So I'm going to go ahead and break this out into different files and see how that helps me. Okay. It's already, if you see the public views, you know, we started with HTML, JavaScript in a single file. Then we separated those out. We separated our JavaScript file. If you see in your public folder over here, these are nicely separated out. And then our HTML or views are in a separate file. Okay. So let's go ahead and try to break this down further so that we can use the same code in our different projects. Okay. Let's see. Let me go ahead and create a new folder. Oh, I forgot again. How do I do? Oh, yeah. I have to skip this. Okay. Let's see. What do I call? I have a database called pets, so I'll go ahead and use that. Let me make sure I have parties, pets. Okay, I have a lot of database. Let's try one of those. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is create my server.js. All right, we need this. So server.js file. Okay. Next, I need my. So right now we'll concentrate on MySQL first. We'll break out MySQL first. Then in the other exercises we'll see the other portions breaking out, because you see the connection and all those kind of stuff. Those are kind of repeating. So in my server.js, I'll do my node stuff. I need my MySQL installed, so I wouldn't worry about my package.json just now. I'll just install MySQL in this folder. Okay. Let's go ahead and create a. Let me go ahead and create a new folder. I'm going to call it config. Okay. So in the examples, MySQL connection and all those stuff, you know, those are kind of configurations that we need to set up before we start using it, right? So I'll create a folder called config and I'll put my files inside it. Okay. So I'm going to create a new JS file called connection. Okay. And I'm going to move my MySQL connection in this file. This file will only have the connection, all right, nothing else. So if I want to create a connection with MySQL, the first thing I need a require statement. So I'll go ahead and say, I call it connection. Let's start with let. I'm going to say let connection require MySQL. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and install it after this. Okay. Let's call it MySQL. That's better actually. Okay. And the next thing we do is we create the connection, right? So let's go ahead and create our connection really quick. MySQL dot create connection function. All right. Close this. Takes an object. Host localhost. I have my port number 3306. My user root password okay, and then my database. Okay, you see that in every activity I have to keep doing this again and again and again. All right, so this time my goal is I do this one and I can reuse in my other activities. So I have this let's go ahead and use, well, I look at my, you guys can put any database you want. It doesn't matter. I have some of the databases already installed, so I'm going to use one that is there. It's called PetsDB. Okay. Once I have the connection string, we call this connection string. The next thing is I want to connect it, right? So let me go ahead and do the connection.connect method. Okay. And this takes in a anonymous functions, throws out error if there's any error. Let's log this if there is error. I'm just going to log it or throw it. Okay. And if there's no error, this means I was able to successfully connect. Successfully connected. Okay. With ID, I'm going to just add this ID here. Connection dot thread ID. Okay. So from the previous examples, I just copied, or I just wrote it out, the connection string. Again, this is all same thing from the previous ones. Okay. Now, what was the second thing that's repeating? MySQL queries, right? Well, I'm missing, I need to export this out so that this can be used elsewhere. So I have my connection object. I want to send out this connection object out. So module dot exports, okay, and then connection. Okay, you guys should have been using this in your homework assignments. And previously we saw if you want to create some code that is outside and then you want somebody else to use it, this is how you do it. You create as it is and then you do a module.export and export this whole thing out. All right, so this way my connection, this thing, I can use it somewhere else. Okay, so I'm going to close this. My connection file is ready. It's there. Now I'm going to show you how to use it. All right. The next thing was I'm going to create a new file, and let's suppose I'm going to call it query.js. Okay. The next repeating part was all my SQL queries, right? I keep calling those same over and over again in my activities. So I'm going to extract those out so that I can copy just this whole file in my new activity folder and just keep calling the same thing. Okay, but the problem is I want to keep it general because my table name changes, right? Right now it's codes, the next is parties, the other one is pets. So I want to keep it general. I don't want to hard code these things. All right, so let's see how we can achieve that. All right, so since this is my query.js, what do I need? I need a SQL connection. Okay, do I need to write the whole code now? The connection is equal to blah blah blah.
No,
Nope. We just did it. So I just need to call that file over here so I can use it. All right, how do I do that? I say let connection is equal to require. But this time I can pass in my location of my connection file. All right. So this file is in the same folder as this one, so I don't have to worry about anything. I can just say / and it should show up. Connection.js. Okay, simple connection will also work. Node is kind of smart enough to recognize both of these. Okay, so you see from here only, if you keep copying the connection file over into your exercises, how easy it becomes. You don't have to keep writing that connection again. Just do this. It's already available. Okay. Now let's go ahead and worry about our queries. So how do I make it more general? So my select query is, oops, select star from pets, let's suppose. Is it pets? Let's quickly see if that's what the table name is called. Oh man, it's so tiny here. It's my okay. I can open this. Okay. Let's suppose I'm targeting this table only. Okay. Oh man, look at this. The screen is all okay. So I have these are all these, and my table name is called pets. Okay, so let me close this. So I got it. Select star from pets. That's what I want to do. Okay, now you guys had a quotes table. Was it called quotes? Right. So what do you guys do? Select star from quotes. Right. Let me close this. I think there's one more called cats. So select star from cat. You see the repeating part? Select star from is almost same. The only thing is my table name is changing. Okay, and I can kind of change that. I can write a general query that these tables can be passed in, and I can update that. Okay, so let's see how I would do that. So first, since I'm going to export this module out also, all right, I'm going to create a object. Let's call it query. Okay, this will have my queries. Okay, and let me go ahead. Before it becomes huge, I will say module.exports is equal to query. Okay, everybody good with this? So I'm creating an object that I want to export, that I want this to be visible outside this file. Right, just like connection, right? I can use connection over here. I want this to be used in my server.js. Okay, that's why I did I'm going to create an object. I'm going to put some functions over there. But before that, I did this, and I said, okay, everything is going to come out from here. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and create our select query here. So I'm going to call my first function select, since it's a select query, and I'm going to create a function. So I don't need this, I need this. We'll see what I need. Okay, my object has a function. Everybody okay? Remember properties and methods, they can come inside my object. So this is how I have it. Okay. In this, I'm going to create my connection.query, and I'm going to write my query. So let me close this. So I have some. So I'm going to do some work before that, but eventually this is what I want. I want to say connection.query. Okay. Close this. I have a query string. All right. Then I'm going to have some parameters possibly, and then I have my callback function. My callback function has error and result. Okay. Eventually, this is what I want to get at. All right. Again, this is the first time you will have to write it. In the next times, you can just reuse this, and we'll see how. Okay. Same thing you guys did in the previous exercise. I'm writing my connection query, and I'm going to put my select over here. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to say select star from pets. Okay. Well, this exact query wouldn't be here. We are going to change it, but this is what I want to achieve eventually. All right. Since we will be updating this, let's see. Okay. Let's do this. I'm going to extract this out and call it query string. Oops. I'm going to write my query over here. Take this, put it here, and then call my query string here. Okay, same thing, I'm just extracting it out. We'll see why. Alright, so now what I want to do is I don't want star and pets, because if I run this it will work, but it will only work for star and pets. I don't want that. I want it to work for multiple tables, different databases. Okay, so what I can do is, you guys have seen one question mark, right? In your SQL queries in Node.js, when you put one question mark, what does that mean? It's going to fill it with a value. Excellent. Now there is something called two question mark. Any guesses what that would mean? Two question mark. Values is one. Good try. A second value. No, you can use the same question mark for any number of values, right? If in my update query I have set this equal to this question mark and this equal to this question mark. Where? What was that? Who said that? You? Where what? It's like ventriculist over here. I can't remember.
George was throwing his voice.
Oh, okay. All right. So second, two question mark means it is reserved for tables and columns. So you can create a query dynamic, and if you use two question mark, Node will take that as you are passing in a table name or a column name. All right. One question mark, Node knows that this is a value. Two question mark, it knows this is a table or column. It's reserved for that. All right. Don't screw up and do it other way around, because Node is looking for two question mark. If it sees two, it will replace it with a table name or a column name. Okay. All right. Let's see what I mean. So select star is a column name, right? You can put column names over here, right? So I can replace this with two question mark. Pets is a table, so I can replace it with two question mark. Okay, this is exactly when you do select star from something where column name is equal to, you do one question mark, like, and that becomes the value. So if it is not a value, if you want to replace from this table names, you put two question marks. All right, let's see what happens now. So when I run this, any values that I pass in over here in my array, they're going to be replaced with the table name and column names. Okay, so if I do this, if I say star, oops, and then I say pets, what does my final query become? It becomes select star matches this from pets. Right? Same as values, just be careful, use 2 question marks if you're using tables. Alright? So this is good. We are moving towards making more general. The only problem right now is still kind of hard-coded. What is hard-coded? My pets and star is still hard-coded. If I use this exact same file somewhere else, I still have to update these two. Alright? So what I can do is, in my function, I can ask the user or whoever is using my file what columns and what table are they asking for. Alright? So I can do this select start. So I can say what column, and I can pass in a variable called what table. Okay, or let me call it column name and then table name. Oops. Okay, and then I can replace this with the same thing. I can say column name, table name. Okay. What did I just do? I'm taking my function is now accepting 2 parameters called column name and table name. Whatever gets passed in over here, I just pass in over here. Okay. Now it's become more general. Now I can actually use this somewhere else, and we'll see how I do it. All right. So let's go ahead and complete this. If I have error, I want to do a console log. Let's complete this part. Error. Okay. And if there's no error, let's go ahead and log this. Log the result. Okay. Same query. I've just put double question marks, make it more dynamic and more general. All right. Any questions so far? Everybody getting the hang of it, what we are trying to do here? Sort of, okay. Let's see how we use it. That will kind of help. Not at all?
I said sort of is better than not at all.
Oh, okay. I was like, not at all. All right, let's go ahead and see how we can call this now. We already have our export here. Okay, that looks good. Should be able to access this outside. Now in my server.js, what do I need? Do I need my required MySQL? What do you guys think? Do I need it or not? Yeah. I don't need it. It's already there. I don't have to worry about it. I just want to call this function now. I don't care if it is making a connection or not. It's already being handled inside that file, so I don't have to worry about it. Then what do I need to import? Like, what do I need to require? Query. Excellent. So let's go ahead and say query is equal to require, and then it's in my config folder, right? So let's see if it shows up. Oh, it did. Config / I want my query. Okay. Now I can just do query dot select shows up, right? Select, and I want my column name, which is star, and then I want my database called pets. What else do I need over here? What was that? What else do I need to write over here to make sure to get it running? Any guesses? That's it. I don't need anything else. They should work if yeah, trick question. So let's go ahead. I need to install MySQL though. So let's see where this is. Okay, clear this. Cd I call it pets. Let me make sure. Yep. So npm install MySQL, since I don't have my package JSON over here. Okay. Node mon server.js, and there it is. See. Now I have few more databases here, right? Let me see if I can open so that I can see what else do I have. No, I can't. What else? Quotes. Okay, I think I already have that installed. So now I want to, let me open all these three here. Connection, query. Okay. Now I want to access my okay. Now I want to access my quotes database. I already have it installed. Okay. Now I want to run the same query. What do I need to change now? Anything? Nothing over here. What about this? This is the only place where I have to update my database. Okay. We can figure out some way to even fix this, but for now, so I will say quotes underscore db, and then my server.js star, and then my table name is quotes, and that should be it. Okay. Oh, it's already fancy enough to run the whole thing anyway. All right, so run this. So this time now I'm getting all my data from my, so only two things I change and I'm able to run it. All right. Now imagine if you keep copying this config, query.js and connection.js in all your activities, and just keep changing and just keep using the select query over here. Makes it much simpler, right? Let's do one more. If I have select where, let's do select where, select star from table name where something is equal to something. How do we write that one? Let's see. Close my connection here. All right, so we would have to go back to our query. No changes in connection, just the query. I'm going to minimize this. This time I'm going to write a function that is called select where. Okay, I'm going to write a function. We need few things. We'll come back and see. All right. So in this I have to do same thing. Var query string. Okay. And what am I trying to do? I'm trying to do a where condition also. Select star from the table name is quotes, right? Quotes. Select star from quotes where guys, remember any column name from the quotes? What was that? ID? Okay, where ID is equal to, is there a valid ID there? 1. Okay, this is the query string I want to write now. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how we can generalize this. Connection.query. This will be my query string. Okay, my inputs, and then my callback function. Error and result. Okay. All right. So what is this column? So I can ask for a column name. Okay. So this becomes double question mark, and then I can pass it over here. It's kind of easy. I'll just start with the first so that I don't forget what it is. Okay. The second question mark is my table name, so I can put my table name here, table name. All right. So my second becomes, this is double question mark because it's a table name. All right, where ID is also a column name, right? So I need a second column name. Okay. Column to match. Okay, I want this column to match, right? So I'm calling it column 2. You can call it second column, whatever makes more sense to you. Okay, so this thing, and since it's a column name, we will change this to question mark. What's the last one? Value. So column to match value. All right, don't be shy with naming your variables. That makes more sense and complete. It's kind of easier to track versus writing comments. So column to match value. So I have a column to match, and then I need a value. Oops. Okay. Column to match value. Okay, and this is going to be one or two question marks. How many? One question mark, and then just copy this over here. Okay, and that is it. So I'm going to just copy this here. Function error result. Okay. Format this, save it. All right. So select where I need to pass in 1, 2, 3, 4 things. All right. So let's go into our. I still have quotes. Let's go ahead in my server. Let's go ahead and call this one query dot select where this time. Okay. First is the column name. So let's go ahead and I will say star. Second is my table name, so it's called quotes. Third is my column to match ID. Okay. And the last one is number. Let me just pass and then see if this works. Does it require a string, or this should work? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and run this and see if this is successful. And there it is. It gives me, oh, it's running all of them. Okay, let me go ahead and comment this out so you guys can see this. Okay, now I get only one, which is ID1. Okay, if I want to change it to pets, all I have to do is change my connection here, change it to pets DB or whatever DB, and then pass in over here pets table name ID 1. All right. Similarly, you can write all your queries. You can write your put queries, delete, update, even joins and everything. Okay, just put this. Now, if I have a new activity, what I would do is I would just copy this folder over here, config folder, change few bit, and my SQL is up and running. Okay. Any questions on this?
Would it not be smarter to have your database name on your server.js?
Yeah, you can even extract that out and then yeah, exactly. See, you guys are thinking the right direction. Yeah, once you get that, you can extract these also out, create a new file, put it over there, give it a try and see how that works. But yes, it is possible. Yeah. Put it on that so that you don't even have to worry about the database next time changing over here. You can just do it in your server.js and keep changing the database. Yeah, perfectly will work. Any other questions, comments? All right, so this ties into our next topic, which is ORM. ORM stands for Object Relational Mapping. What is ORM? This is ORM. You guys just learned ORM, and that's it. Literally, this is what ORM is. ORM is just a wrapper around your queries. Okay? This is what you do. Anything that is surrounded by this, where your queries are hidden, you don't have any idea, you just call the functions. We call this ORM. Let me change this to ORM. Okay? When you are create a variable or whatever the file name, change it to ORM. And let me change this. Can I rename this? Yeah. What was that? Automatically update in mode. Yes.
So that only applies to queries, or just modularization and everything that we did?
No, ORM kind of specific to queries. So anytime you will hear ORM would be related to MySQL queries, right? So the point over here is you kind of extract the query part out. You kind of hide it from the user, that is you, in your new projects or somebody who uses it. They don't care what you have written over here. They only care how do I access that, and they access it by calling this function, and this is it. So the select where, these select functions, these are all part of what we call ORM, or Object Relational Mapping. So you are mapping your SQL queries to objects, which are, ORM is an object over here, okay? And that's what it is. Now ORM is a very, very strong concept, and almost every language has it, all right? Java has it. When I learned ORM in Java, especially there's a framework called Spring Boot, I stopped writing queries. I would code review and like reject code that had queries inside it. They already have a built-in tool for ORM in Java, and in JavaScript we'll see that too. You don't have to write a single query. You have to just call function, and the software or the code that somebody has written will do the work for you. All right. But at this point, I want you guys to understand what is going behind the scenes in ORM is that this is what's happening. Somebody is writing queries, and this is how it is working. Okay? In the next class, you will look at an ORM library in Node.js called Sequelize, and you won't have to write queries. You will have to learn how to use it. But right now, we will see how do we write our own ORMs. Okay? At this point. All right, any questions? Okay, kind of get the hang of ORM. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the next activity. Well, let's do this. Let's take a break. At 8 o'clock, we'll start this again in pairs. Go through the code. We'll go through the code. Make sure you guys kind of get a hang of it, and then use that in your next exercise. All right, so let's go. Yeah, let's back it up. Again, you can also write your join queries and everything inside it. And so
Yes. So it's
they were so sensitive like second time it's all drivers.
And then at that point, we didn't want to undo something here. We wanted one base.
And then it'll say that it's not the property of Even though I did it the first time. So an easy way to see what I mean.
If your system is in a simplistic state,
Super. But
So
our data is not in a simplistic state. It's very complicated. You have to know what you're doing. You don't want to know the intricacies of what
So right now,
create very
dummies, that's values and everything. Once I run one submission, it'll compare all these values to the one I submitted. Bring it back.
simplistic, but it's all by the
However,
small part.
say this, bring up match, go to this. So now it's showing photos for mine, and the difference is right? So right now, the difference is 6. Now watch what happens when I run it. First off, I don't see anything popping up. I get the error. But this one, just remember how it was 6 before? So now this one's 6. And that one is 13. It looks like it's pushing it down. It's not changing. So technically, these are the exact same. The difference is I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, all the crazy shit.
So the second time you post
My guess itself is extremely this on the back. So basically, it narrows it down to one value. And then it returns that value.
So what you want to do is when your second time you call your post, everything should be reset. No, I'm saying that's the goal. So is there any database connected to it?
No, there's no like.
It's all in memory, right? Oh, okay, so it shouldn't reset it. It should keep it.
Right. It should keep the value, it should going to the new value.
Okay, so
Oh yeah. So just do it here, right?
Take the code.
So basically this function will take all the scores from every already submitted user and add them up to or well add them up this is because they're using it. Sweet.
Legacy systems.
Yeah. Find best match.
Yeah, so it's like I'll introduce you to this copy and I'm like, he knows me as a teacher.
Oh, for the
So I know he's
right.
I feel like when I do that, I'm doing the process like this, you can be my best and all of that.
Yeah.
So it's copying, but
That makes sense. I can
yeah, you can open that. That's your
I want to position myself to where I'm collecting.
So the first option comes here.
Usually started like this, around the years right now. What's a little different?
This array, yeah, this array is
Yeah. I ended up going like.
these are, I was just incorporating these check options. But this is new.
Okay,
These are not yours.
They kind of work right now. It's in this one right now. So right now I have surfer and female. And then go from there.
So they are going to
Yeah. But I was having those problems before I programmed. I was sure.
You're using your body, your
The
mind.
amount of ones that are big green colors.
There's a level at which everything in your body works. Constantly engaged with stuff. So basically, goes through a full circle functioning and it's like taking a
So-
it's just the you know, these systems are going to start.
So, okay,
You
the
know,
first
that's
time
why
I
this
update your array.
that's why this idea.
And then,
And it keeps in the array, like my value for the first one is there. It's a new one. But it's giving me weird values.
So people don't know what their message should be. It's like Pandora's box.
so the values are updating in the array.
Not in the least.
Yeah. This time, first time.
Okay, so the next time it's on. Let's look at the.
Next time it's there, I'm not sure you want to see me.
Dark beyond dark.
Yeah, so the difference is going to be on the next function.
I've been in situations.
This is not.
So now we have array just
You can view the items and all of these properties outside the item, inside the item, it's under.
So my user is always going to be my hero. So I'm comparing it to the user.
What I didn't think of is, Vegas is what I'm saying, well, it's Vegas.
I mean, I guess
Yeah. For the longest time, I'm seeing that. Whatever highway comes from Reno.
Okay.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I mean,
So yeah, but I thought it was reflections of
scores
somewhere
somewhere,
there, all the
right?
coordinates inside off and my headlights on. So
It
trying to
should
make sure
reset
it wasn't
back
something
when you
else.
do the
Which
second.
is scary, because it could not do
Like
that.
the difference should be.
Wow.
So then, when would I reset them?
First, confirm if I'm saying that right. When you first start, what's the difference? There's no difference, right?
There's no difference because there's nothing.
Wow.
Because I use
The second time also, when you take submit,
You're serving the earth is proud.
you want it to be.
One of the podcasts I listen to on the way down, it's all about your own crazy conspiracy.
Right, I
theories.
think your arrays are getting
Like analyzing these
That's
YouTube
correct.
videos.
The new scores, is that what it
It
is?
was the most.
Yes, but I think it's adding on to my previous array.
Right, so this is your new array. So you kind of like reset every time.
So I guess what I'm asking is, when would I reset it? Would I reset it in this function, or would I reset it after all the functions?
Find difference. Yeah, at the beginning,
It's there.
always like reset it.
Okay, so I would just go to
Difference.
differences for some.
Everything's gonna go there.
No.
Yeah.
Boxing made that decision.
Anyways, I found what.
Okay, so this will reset the array and then it will update. This one on this update. Right, that's why I control this. Yes, try this. That's where it's not resetting.
There's no.
Your values are getting updated, but it's not reset.
So.
Try this.
Now it's not working.
Okay, what's the error?
And so what it's doing is a callback here. Saying my server's in use. This is my callback function here. And so this is
What is it? Your server is it?
This client is supposed to load once this feature. So this, I'm using the same one. So it'll look something like this. This is what I'll do too. You wait for that. I mean, it's
I don't think that line should be
yeah. Yeah, I was reloading before, so it says no. It's saying my server's still running,
Yeah.
but I don't know how when I quit it. So this is going to feel like I can't quit out of the server now. It's already. And because this is such a simple page, it looks like nothing happens and it just moves it over, but it actually doesn't.
Let's just close it. No, I don't think this will. Right, I don't think this.
Because when you're doing stuff like this, the main thing to remember is that the APIs essentially think of APIs.
It's saying that it's in use, which it is. I don't know how to put it forward.
Something for SQL part, and they do have. Because once before it, they do have prompts. Yeah.
I know how to do it on Mac. There were some commands.
Like on the stopping client side, right? Let's say I gave to localhost you know, X is another order. So I send that to the server. The server's like, oh shit, I have a wrong X. So I'm gonna run this code within here, and I'll give you back whatever it is that it's supposed to provide the client. As soon as the client gets that, then client side, you can add some logic and say, hey, you know, reload this page or redirect to something else or something like that. That makes sense.
We'll try this px. What is this? Px space aux pipe grep node. See if it comes up with that port number.
Thank you. It is.
Can you change the PowerShell to something? Is there a dash?
I mean, I guess I could change the server.
Try this. Go to your git bash. Git bash is yeah, try this one. Run this pxx psx.
Process IDs.
Do you require an angle down to the Yes.
What about this one?
It's still there.
Well, if you need more fine-grained control, try this one. Netstat -ano find listening and then put in your port number.
Okay. That asks what product you want to buy. Okay. This is where I'm taking right now. Let's choose to
What's
essentially
Same thing basically. It's not recognized.
try this on oh this one didn't work?
Yeah.
Next time?
So after your environmental questions, it's all .NET. They call .NET because the inquirer, you know, its context.
Oh, don't type in C.
You pull them out. As soon as you finish that, you also .NET. That means so essentially what it means is inquire is promising so that it will return some kind of data. Correct.
Yep.
So usually that means
Your object's being
typically have an error that occurs.
This is very good. So you probably would want
saving the inquirer.
this object to this into
It could be,
So we use that variable.
some of the time it could be
Drop it in there.
somewhere.
So wherever you have this, put that into a variable and then use that variable.
So I mean, I don't, other than, something must be going on with Afghanistan. Because it's just very support this it's a fire. Because I have a, so maybe kill that PID from the previous one. So then it's, which one?
Yeah, I think it's go back to let's see. Oh, this. Oh no, this is in bash. Kill -9 and that number.
So you're creating initiate question and returning this function up to the top.
Nope.
Kill is not there.
A positional parameter cannot be found except argument. If I restart my computer, will it go in?
Yeah, it will. It will kill that. Yeah. What about this one? Netstat something.
Execute. But I get my result back. So, check the home.
It's not even. Oh my god. Yeah, now I'm connected.
Now you're connected?
Like it allowed me to connect to the server. It never said it stopped the server. I don't know.
Windows. Alright guys, go ahead and start the next activity. You guys have the schemas given. And then the example, the previous one that I did, that has also been selected. Look at that example and at least do the select queries. Select and select where. I just want to make sure that you guys are able to create those folders, connect all your files together. So follow the example from the previous activity. And the exercise has, you have to write a little bit more queries. At least do the first two, or at least the first one. I want to make sure everybody is able to create those connection ORM files and then write their queries. Look at the previous example. It's almost the same. The next two are just writing more complex queries. All right, go ahead. Try that. And then we'll see what is next. Let me see. Okay. We'll take 10-15 minutes for this one. Quickly look at the previous one. Example has already been selected. Look at this one. Create the same folders. All right. You need to add the config one. Create those two files. Update this. And then update the correct table names, connection queries, and then make sure you guys can run that. Again, do this in pair programming. Do this in a group, and at least first one should be able to be completed.
I know that at some point, like, the eye has changed, but I'm not sure which one. Because there's a bunch of grapes. That's it.
Oh, okay. Next week,
Yeah.
oh, you guys did like 2 weeks ago. You had the wrapper thing, right?
Yeah.
That's Saturday exhibition, and we had written a sequel wrapper. Okay. And it's in the oh,
So there was in the assets.
Well, I built it mainly to solve these
basically, yeah, that's the next.
So like up there, I don't see that.
Public
Once you call that first, it's going to go off and do it before
yeah.
finish. So like,
Oh, you're not independent.
yeah.
So,
So you're like, oh, that's probably like a
Yeah.
I'll do it now.
Or do we already have that? No, we already have that. Oh, we already have that. Bang a ring down. It's only so much pitch you fit one window.
So.
So I just left out your example of that.
It's not there on slide?
Oh, I haven't put in my,
It should be called ORM. Yeah, the ORM example dot zip. ORM example. Yeah.
So you know we did.
Yeah.
There it goes. Yeah. I should. And it's not doing it. So we do it.
The ORM file?
No, it's just basically
Outside of you could? I just had these. I would,
it shouldn't. It shouldn't.
what folders do you have so far?
That's good. So,
Possibly a sleep folder for like connection. Yeah, so I have the install folders. Then I have the schema sheets file, and then I have my ORM in there as well, and then I'm gonna have the config file as well.
tables.
It's just a folder.
That's all it has. It's just a folder. You know what I'm finding?
So under like
When
unlock,
it's
and
not
just create like a thing.
maybe a full next.
And then you can go and you can dump your connection.js in there. And then
you can take this, just run it as a tab. Yep. Hey Daniel, if I see the workbench, is there a way to select the database over here and you can run into the tab so you can see it without dragging it? Every action. Because I created it in my VS Code.
Yeah, you can see actually, like if you refresh. Yeah, it should show up this.
Right, but can I see it up here?
Now it's
Like I didn't use it in a tab, I created it over here. Like
Oh, you
literally,
want to see the values inside?
yeah.
Yeah,
There's
so
where
that's
records I can give you the value.
Yeah, like if you want to organize everything, you have similar to the previous activity, you had a config folder which stored connection.js, and then you can also put your ORM.js in there.
What do we drop?
And then your seeds and your schema would go in like a DB folder.
Right here.
And then from there, yeah, you just have the server.js as the root, which would run
There it is.
whatever it is that it's
That's enough. You can do that. Previously, we've always
Yeah, yes.
Okay, that's a good deal. I guess like this name parties, you just want to be able to do
No, for this exercise, I don't think so.
Is that $500?
Yeah, you can just, once you have your ORM filled out, you can just call them from your server.js, just one after another.
Alright, so I don't have like all of my files set up, so I'm not going to actually be able to run it. Does that should have to do the first one on here, but you know, if you makes perfect good sense to just copy it.
Where is parties and party underscore name coming from?
The seats.
Okay.
So the parties are the table.
Okay, but those variables are undefined in that scope.
Wouldn't you have it from the value of the server?
So your function call, you have table input, call to search, value of call. So where would those go?
Would it just be matching these then?
Well, yeah, that's your input, right? So
for the
your
first
table
two,
input, your table
how many queries do I need to write?
Then table input would be
My
those parties. Right? Because your first double question mark is from table, right? So your table input.
So like
is
how
the
many
name of the table,
select wheres do I
question
need
mark,
to
placeholder,
write for the
table,
first one?
And then where.
Oh, first two.
That should be a single question mark in the where, because it's a value, right?
What did you ask?
So
Or would you
how
have to
many
say where
in my
something
ORM? How
equals
many
something
select
is
functions
some
do I need to
kind of
write for the
expression,
first two?
right? So column name,
Just one. Yeah.
value, right? You have
So
a
let's
single
look
question
at
mark
this.
per column.
For the first two, I just need one select function, and that should work for both of them. So again, I had the same configuration from the previous exercise that I did. Just have to copy it over. I updated it to my
So
parties
that's
DB.
good there. And then where.
And in my
there
ORM,
needs to be an expression.
you can ignore these.
Like one thing.
I have
It needs to
one
be where
select.
column equals something, or column is less than something.
Well, I thought I had it.
No, you're close. You're literally missing two characters.
And in my for the first two queries, I just have to call the same function with different table names. Right? I have two tables, parties and clients. What I just have to do is I'm using the same select function over here. You see, I don't have to write more select queries. I just change the column name
This is your column.
and then the table names over
This is your
here.
value.
You see, just with one function,
Where?
I'm able to call two. If I had a third table, I could just use this and call with my third table. Alright, no need to write more select queries or do more changes. My ORM code, it's the same code as the example that I did for live coding. Same code, you can just copy that file over and just change the database name, put in your credentials, root and your password and all that stuff, and it should start working just with this function call. Okay. So any questions on this? How the directory structure is there? How we are calling this? Using module.exports, and then we are referring to something that is outside that we have defined somewhere. Now you see my server.js. It's kind of went down from like 120 lines. Well, given I have more APIs and all, it's just basically 4 lines, and I can do my selects over here in 4 lines. and I don't really care what the query is running at this point. I just know that if I call this function and I pass these two values, I'm going to get my data back, right? So my ORM is kind of like the black box at this point. If I created in my previous exercise, I just can keep copying those files over, and I can, you know, keep reusing them.
Right. Without the where. With the where, you have select where.
Now the last two are more complicated queries, so take a look. I'll post the solution, take a look. But in the end, they are just queries. If you know how to write that query in MySQL, you should be able to translate this over as a string. So that's not the point. Is what I would start is write the query in MySQL, make sure it runs and it gives you the data back, and then copy it over and then make those question marks and all that stuff. Right? Okay. Okay. So ORM is my object name. I have a function. I have three functions over here: select, select function, left join. Select is the one which is being used for the first two. Okay, it's the same query, it just replaced with question marks. All right, again, two question marks for tables and columns, and one question mark for the values. All right, any questions? All right, so next part is again really important. We'll see where this fails and how to fix that. All right, so go ahead and do you guys just flag the next exercise? 14, yes please. So download the zip file or you look at it GitLab. I want you guys to, again, in pairs, go ahead. There's no your unsolved folder. Go ahead and run this. Run the node server.js file in your from your zip file and see what's the output. You shouldn't, and go ahead and see what you have to change. Again, there's no like a coding. You don't have to write any code or anything. The purpose right now is that you download the zip file and run it. Make sure it runs successfully. That's what the goal is right now. So you have to, what was that? So in this exercise, what you have to do, there's a database file. So start with running the SQL files, right? Create the database and then run the package.json file. What else? Look at the config connection, just update your connections. And that should be it. And then run this file. All right, one more time. So open the DB folder, run those two SQL files. They should create your database. And then look at your connection.js, see if your connection string is all good. Update that. And then run your package.json, npm install. And then run your server. That should be it. Let's see.
No, I can't find my database. It's not popping up. And I don't know how to do it without refresh.
On your VS Code, right click on it and then. Right, does everybody has this up and running now? Good. See the undefined? Okay.
Access the
All right, you guys see the undefined? I'm on line number 5 on your server.js. What's happening over here? So if you look at, open up your ORM file and see what select where is doing. Select where is a function, same thing. The only thing over here, it's returning a result, right? My functions can return a result, right? So I'm returning my result, whatever I get, okay? And this, in my server.js, I call this function and I'm expecting data. But what you guys see is undefined. So why is it undefined? What is that? You asked me something before. What's the issue?
No, that's the exact same thing.
Yes, that's why I'm asking you. What's the issue?
Yeah, we have to do a callback.
You have to do a callback. So, the guys, very important. What's going on over here is the async issue.
Yeah.
Why is there async issue? Because in my select, I have this connection.query, which is an async call. It's not going to wait for result or anything. All right, you cannot do a return from here. It's not going to work. It just console logs it. Yeah. All right, that's the issue with it. And what's the solution? How do we handle the async calls? Callback function, our favorite callback function. Guys, that's the solution to handle the async problem. All right. Anybody bold enough to go ahead and supply this solution? How do I make it a callback? Well, return is not going to work, so this is this is wrong. So this thing is never going to work because I cannot do a return because of the async nature, but I need to fix it. And the solution is callback, writing a callback function. Okay. Now how do I write this callback function?
You swap out line 9 where it says return results and throw the callback function in there.
Yes. Swap the line number 9 out and then call your callback function over here. What was that?
I ran into this earlier.
Yeah, he actually asked me this question like 2 days ago with his homework assignment.
Already fell into the trap.
Yeah. And you know, this is a very common trap. When I was learning JavaScript, I this confused me a lot. This is and this is because of the async nature. Again, the reason is this runs on the client side, right? On your browser, you cannot expect your browser to be waiting on anything. That's why that's the nature of JavaScript. What would happen if it was waiting? Your window would just freeze. I mean, I know Windows does it a lot, but but your browser, you cannot expect your users to be like a frozen screen, doesn't do anything. So that's why these have to be async. Now our code has to be modeled accordingly so that we can handle those, and that's the callback nature. All right, so we know the solution is change this to callback. Okay, so the return is not going to work, so I need to change this. Now how does the callback function works? Let's look at this one only, the query, right? So in my query function, the last parameter is a callback function, right? Now this is, we are calling it, this time we have to define it. So what you will do is, we'll start with this one and pass in a function which is going to be the callback function. All right. So I need an extra parameter, and then I'm going to call it callback function. Okay. This is not going to work, so let's remove this. Okay. And at this point, I'm going to call my callback function. Now this is still not complete. I have to pass in the result. Excellent. So I have to call this callback function, but I still need this result. So I'm going to pass in, whatever this result is. Okay. Now is this solution complete? Nope. I have to define. All right, guys, very important. So I'm calling my callback function, which I'm passing result, but I haven't defined this callback function anywhere. Like I don't know what to do with this result. So I have to define this call. I'm calling the function, but I'm not defining it anywhere. And where do I define? Whenever I'm calling this select where, which is in my server.js. All right. So over here, I'm adding an extra parameter which is called callback.callback. All right. So now let's go back and see. In my select where, first I had table input column to search a value of the column. I have added extra parameter called callback function. All right. So my syntax over here is not valid anymore. So I need to add a callback function here. Okay, I need to pass in a callback function. There are a couple of ways we have seen. I can do a anonymous function here. Will that work? Just like the queries, I can do function, pass, yep, and then results. Then move my console log here. Okay, so now what will happen is it's going to wait until my data comes back, then it's going to go ahead and console log this. All right, go ahead and run this and see if this works. All right, so I'm able to see all my rows and everything here now. Let me close this. All right, again, so over here, because of the async nature of connection.query, I cannot do a return statement over here, right? I have to do some callback mechanism, and for that to work, I'm creating my own callback. So I'm passing in a function. When these lines are done, what will happen is going to call this function. Right, it's going to call my callback function and then pass in result. And I have defined this callback function over here. Okay. Right now I have an anonymous function, but I can clearly do, I can write a total function like this. And then instead of this anonymous function, I can just call this function get results. If I had to do this, I would do var data is equal to orm dot select where everything remains the same. Okay, and this time instead of anonymous function, I can just call the function that I have defined below. They're different styles. How do you do it? Whichever is more comfortable. Again, as I mentioned earlier, when I started, I was writing functions like this. That kind of made sense. It's easier for me to follow, especially coming from a different programming language. But once you get used to it, you will see anonymous functions being used a lot. Okay? All right. Any questions on this? Did anybody else run into this issue? I know Gabriel ran into it. Somebody else? So in I think like 3-4 weeks ago when we did a mini project, you guys did the callback function. Do you guys remember? The way you guys structured, both of you had the similar solution. Your group and your group, you were passing in a callback function and then doing all this stuff. Yeah. So callback function has its uses, and it's almost always used with async calls. All right. Whenever you see async call and you're having issues with undefined or anything, you probably need to add a callback function. All right.
Could you switch back to the ORM?
Okay.
Now, callback function with result, and then on the other one it's
Right. So result. This is important. This should match this thing over here. Okay. Now this stops over here, and that's the name and everything stops over here. It's not visible outside.
Okay.
Now outside, the important part is that I have to create a function. I have to pass in a parameter. It doesn't matter what name I give. The only requirement is I have to create a function with one parameter. I can put data, result, it doesn't matter. This is the name that I'm giving. The requirement is that when I call this function, I need to have 1, 2, 3 parameters. All right, all are strings. The last one should be a function that has one parameter. So I'm saying like this function with one parameter. It could be, you could put results over here, it doesn't matter. It just have to be a parameter.
Okay. That's just confused me so second.
Right. Well, it is kind of confusing because then you're like, hey, does it match? It doesn't matter. You just need a function. I can call get results over here, right? This function, all I need to do is I need to pass in a function that has one parameter. Could be data, results, it doesn't matter. What is not going to work is, this is not going to work. If I do data, results. And the reason it's not going to work is because it's my select where is expecting a method that only has one parameter. Now you're passing in two. Okay, that's the only requirement. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So the next part and the last part is something called MVC. Let's see. Okay. Any idea what MVC stands for? I think did we talk this before? All right, MVC. So this is MVC is a design pattern. And what do I mean by design pattern is somebody has come up with design pattern that you can use in your code. You can design your code following some of the design patterns that have been created. And MVC is one of them. Again, it's more a concept versus any coding or anything. You follow this concept and then you divide your code, you modularize your code based on whatever these constraints are. Okay, again, it's more like a concept. What it means is M stands for model, view, controller. Okay, and this is a very popular and a widely used design pattern these days. Almost any UI application you will see, even React, Angular, they are kind of based on model view controller. All right, so what does this mean is that I'm going to divide my code in these three parts. All right. The easiest one to understand is this view. What does view mean? If you had to take a guess, what are the files that will go into my view? What files would be part of my view? Handlebars? Middleware stuff, CSS, JavaScript, anything to do with my client side, right? My HTMLs, all those things, they go in the view. All right. What about model? Any guesses? What is that? Exactly. Model is my database stuff. This is my HTML. Model is my database, all right? And this is controller. What does controller do?
Server?
What was that?
Is it like your server?
Server, okay.
The logic?
The logic, yeah? But what logic?
The server logic.
The server logic. Of course. Business logic, yeah. So its controller is the layer that is between your model and view. So in this design pattern, it says that the view cannot talk to the model directly. There has to be some layer in the middle, and that is the controller layer. Okay, my HTML cannot contact my SQL queries directly. They have to go through a middleware, and that is the controller. That's the layer that has all the business logic. All right.
Is that like Node and everything Node does to interact with stuff?
Interact with post.
No, just Node.js.
Yeah, it can be your. Most probably, it's going to be your Node.js code, and we'll see what it consists of and how the code is divided. Okay. But from the concept wise, again, view is all my interface, my UI files. Model is everything to do with my database. And then controller is the layer that talks, communicates with my view and model. So it's the layer that is in the middle. So basically it's M, C, and V. All right? This is how it works. All right? Model view controller. All right. We'll see example over here. If you see the directory structure, this is how the code is being divided. So I have my config files, I have my controller folders, I have my DB, then I have my public and my views. All right. Let's start with the easy one. So the DB is just my SQL schemas. All right. So don't have to really worry about that one. My config, I've already seen it, right? Config is my ORM and my connection. All right, I'll keep that. Let's look at the views. And let's start with the views. So my views folder, always start with your model view controller folders first, and then my views folder are all my handlebars. All right, in this case, because this is my view, this is what's going to be rendered on my web page. All right. Now this index.handlebar we have seen, we know what goes inside, what's inside the layouts. Main layout, yes, exactly. So my main layout, main handlebar goes in my layouts. Okay. What is this partials? Any guesses? Subsections, yes. It's a handlebar, yeah, and it's a subsections. So what partials mean is it's not a complete web page. It's a section on a page that is being called by somebody else. Okay. So for example, my index dot, it's not going to be rendered completely. It's always going to be called by some other handlebar page. So my what's happening is my index.handlebars is calling these anything, whatever it is inside the partials. So you will never call your partial directly. All right. We saw in our index when we were doing our post, get, and all those calls, we were saying rest.render, and we're passing an index. All right. Then this gets rendered. Partials, you will never do a res.render and anything that is in partials. You won't render it because it doesn't have that much code. What it has is only one section of the code. Right? You see how this has been divided. So my index.html, my handlebars usually had a UI elements and all that stuff. So in this part, we have taken this part out and put it in our separate folder, in our partials file. All right. So this only has this portion of my web page. Now my web page could be this is my web page, okay, and this is my UI li section. This is something else. This is something else. This is something else. All of these, you can separate them out into partials. All right. And when we get to React, or you guys run AngularJS, this is very important. They follow this concept. Everything has been separated. You don't have a big HTML file that we've been seeing. You'll have a small index and a small your main layout, and all of these would be calling different components. Okay. And the good part of this, yes.
So your main, the layouts has your main part in there.
Yep.
Could you put in a subsection or a partial for header and footer in there?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You can put a header over here after that and footer. Yeah. That's probably the more followed one. Yeah. Because your main handlebar, the purpose is it's never going to change. Well, never going to change. What I mean is that your page is always going to be the same, and anything that is between is always changing. And that's the idea of the single page application, what we call. Right? You saw when we were doing our exercise, delete and update kind of refreshing, but on your screen everything remained the same. Only that component was changing, and that's the kind of purpose. Kind of gives you a good UX experience. That your main page footer header remains the same, only your content in between is changing. Right? So that is what partials mean. Partial are small components that I have taken from my index or other views And then what happens is I can use this partial in other pages also. I don't have to keep writing the same code and over again. I can call these partial in different web pages and I can reuse them. Okay, so this is my views. Models is all my database connection, right? So you see over here all the ORM connections, ORM calls that we were making. You can put all of those in your model. All right, that's the layer that is talking to the database and making all the calls. Over here we have all create and update functions. You can put these, and then these are calling your ORM config and all that stuff. Okay, again, model is the one that talks to the database. Now this is, as some of you guys were saying, all your Node.js code, your server. This is the controller. All right, this is making your calls, your routing calls and everything. All right, so this is the layer that your view is talking. All right, your view makes this API call. All right, and your API call from your view controller then goes and talks to your database model layer, gets everything, and then sends it back to your view. All right. So there's a lot of code. I'm not going to go line by line, but what I want is you guys understand the concept. The code, you can look at it and try it out, do a console log, you will get it, but you need to get the concept first. Okay, concept is model, keep all your database things in your model. Views, keep all your HTML, handlebars, everything in your view, and their controller is the one that is talking view model. All right, that's the connection between those two. Okay, in your controller you will have all your routes, all your API calls, everything defined. That's the one that is going to make all these. All right, so here's the interesting part. Now you see I'm not starting my server.js or anything over here. Everything is separated out. So everything has been modularized. I still have my server.js file that I have to run, but it has come down from 120 lines to like 27 lines now. Okay, app.use routes, and that's it, and that's handles everything. All right, just one line, and it's going to call all your functions, all your database calls, and everything is going somewhere inside it. I don't know. Okay, it's kind of hidden. When I look at my server.js, I'm like, okay, this is the one that is doing, and that's it. Okay, so keep your server.js minimum, and the reason is by just looking at server.js or just the name, I know this is the server call, this is my app.listen, right? Don't put your logic over here, because I don't want to go through now and look at what all my logic is in over here. I can just ignore this file forever now, right? When somebody else is looking at your code, I'm like, yeah, I know what server.js usually has. It has app.listen, and it will be making all those calls. So I can just skip that. I know this is my starting point. I have to run this, but I don't have to worry about where my core logic is. Now I can dig deeper, and then I say, okay, controllers, that's probably my first point. Views, also I'm like, okay, if I need to make any my index.html or my HTML changes, that's my view. But to understand the core logic, I have to start from my controllers, because that's my business logic. That's the communication between those two. Okay, so I will look at my routes, and that's when I'll start from over here, then look at the database calls and go further down. Okay, and then if I want to look at my ORMs or database calls, I know it should be inside my models. I'll start with my models folder, look into models and see what are my database calls and my queries. And if I'm using any ORM, these are my actual queries. These are all helpers. Okay, eventually these are my queries. Okay, Right, any questions? Right, so there's a exercise. A lot of this stuff is already there, but I want you guys to, in pairs. Let's take like just 10 minutes. So almost these things are done. We still have 2 more things. So take 10 minutes, go over it, discuss the MVC model, and then I would highly recommend doing this exercise before the Saturday's class. Saturday again, it's going to be ORM, new week, but we are going to look at something that is already there. Well, I won't be teaching. Carson will be there. It's called Sequelize. That's the tool he'll be teaching. But before that, take a look at this one right now. Take 10 minutes, discuss the MVC model. Make sure you guys understand. Again, this concept is very important. It's not Node.js or JavaScript. It's applicable in any language, right? We've been using Java. They're also using MVC model now. You'll find some variations for it, but on the base, this is the design pattern that has been very popular. Even in interviews, you'll get asked, they'll be like, hey, do you know what MVC is? Can you explain MVC? How do you design an MVC app? So these are the important parts, all right? So take a look at the code for the next 10 minutes, discuss with your partner, make sure you guys understand the concept. The coding part you can follow and you'll understand, but make sure you guys understand how these have been divided. Going forward, make sure you guys are kind of following good practices, making your code, following the MVCs. At least put out the ORM layer, kind of start thinking about separating your code out. I've seen some of your assignments a lot. Some of people are doing it. They're using module.exports, kind of separating those logic out. That's a really good practice. Otherwise, like a 1000, I mean, you can do it. You can write all your HTML, JavaScript, everything in one file. All your Node.js, all your queries, it doesn't matter. That would be awesome, yeah. Just don't send it for code review to me because that's going to get rejected outright. So, yeah. I'm not going through 1000 lines of code to understand what's going on. And it's again, guys, after like 2 months, if you look at your code, you won't even recognize your code. You'll be like, what is going on? How do I debug this? So it's better modularize, separate it out, get in that habit. All right. So let's take maybe like 10 minutes. Look at the code. Make sure you understand, discuss it, the MVC model, how it is being done. Look at this example. Look at the views, models, and controllers. That's the cats one, yeah. Or you can also look at the 16, the MVC, that's the solution solved one. Again, go and start with the cats one. Let's see what is it asking. I think probably the routes are missing. That should be. Oh, actually, most of the stuff is there. You just need to add a delete button. Again, this is just to practice from the start. Like, how do you add something in view? What changes you need to make in your model, and what changes you need to make in your controller. Okay. At least take a look and discuss the MVC model. And then we move on to the homework and then the checkpoint. Oh, there's a. In this example, so there's this. Let's see.
Black marker somewhere?
I don't have a black. Brown.
I'll just use black.
Right. So in your partials, one more thing. In your handlebar, you will see a if statement. It works as the JavaScript or any statement. This is also part of handlebars. If it checks with the condition, all right. You cannot put like I don't think you can put like not or exclamation mark. So that's why you have something called unless. So unless is opposite of if. It just gives you a false. So that's why you have two different ones. So this is something different. Line number 8, if you look at it, this is how you're calling the partials. So I'm saying in this cats folder, there's a partial called cat block, and then you pass in a value if you want. Again, look at this syntax. Make sure guys at least know where to find if you want to call a partial. And this would be the syntax. Yeah, the greater than, oops, greater than the folder, the file, and then you're passing in a variable called sleep. Oops. And you are assigning a true value. So this is how let's run this one. What's the number on this? 60. So this is how the app actually looks like. If you click this, you will see it will go down. Comes over here. If you click wake up, comes over here. You can add a cat. Wake up, comes back. Okay. So the exercise is saying you add a delete button over here. No comments on that, but if you want instead of delete button, you want to put a permanent, yeah. Yeah. Let's run the delete one. Cat no waking. So there's a delete button. Delete it. Can we do what? So you can. Well, at least it's. Oh, yeah, there. So you can do.
Spot's still there.
Huh?
Spot's still there.
Where is it?
Oh, it's 2.
Oh, I created a new one. Okay.
Right.
Delete this.
Figure out why. I think that
So the cat's exercise is same. You just have to add the delete or kill button or whatever you guys. The E. What is it? E button. Oh, really? Oh, it's called E-list? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Oh. Right. The E-list. Huh.
So, I give this.
Okay, so then you model has like certain required
All right. Any questions on the MVC pattern? Are you guys able to at least run this MVC example? Just make sure you guys are able to run it.
Let's see where you find
It shows up the cat's web page.
Probably on the HTML. Just the well, that was a button actually. So that's a button saying sleep time and wake up time. You can add on top of that, maybe like an else if.
Yeah.
Is there an else if in handlebars?
Yeah, that's what I was showing, right? If there's no else, you can use a if, or there's a keyword called unless. Unless does the
Well, I'm saying there's an else.
Right. This unless over here.
I'm going to create it.
Alright, so before we move on to the, Nick is going to give a demonstration of the homework. He has a really cool solution for that. Before that, there's one more thing. If you look in your GitLab, I uploaded a supplemental folder in the handlebars this week's. There's a supplemental folder. It has a guide to install and get your database on Heroku. So Heroku, follow the guide. It's I think I was reading it will take somewhere between might be 30 minutes or so. So Heroku will give you a MySQL database, and I'm not going to follow this instruction. I want you guys to go ahead in your free time at home. Go ahead and follow this instruction and create a database on Heroku. And this way, everybody, you can give access to anybody and you can access that database instead of being localhost. All right. So this guide, I have uploaded this. It gives you directions. Heroku comes with quite a few options. I think there's MariaDB and a few more. The one JawsDB. Oh yeah, MySQL use this one. MariaDB is also kind of MySQL. It's kind of fork off MySQL from some other company, but it's very similar to MySQL. So go ahead and do this, and this will give you access to a database that is accessible from everywhere. Okay, you don't have to do localhost anymore. All right. So this guide is already on GitLab. It's a PDF. Go through it, set up this database, make sure you guys are able to access it. So all your queries, you can point to this instead of doing the localhost to test it out, right? So there should be instruction at the bottom. Go through the code, see, let's do a test one and see if it is working. All right. That should be it. Then Nick will go through the homework. He'll show you the app design. Do we need they need to do a database also in that homework? MySQL, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see.